Imagine a man who wrote nothing, yet changed everything. A man who owned nothing, yet possessed the greatest wealth. A man who died for asking questions. This is the story of Socrates, the philosopher who turned humanity's gaze from the stars above to the soul within. Around 470 BCE, in the humble suburb of Alapeque just outside Athens' walls, a child was born to ordinary parents. His father, Socrates, carved stone for a living. His mother, Philosopher, delivered babies as a midwife. No one could have predicted that this boy would deliver something far more precious, the birth of critical thinking itself. Young Socrates likely followed his father's trade, chipping away at marble and limestone. Legend whispers that he even sculpted the Three Graces, a statue that stood proudly near the Acropolis. But Socrates would soon trade his chisel for something sharper, questions that could crack open the hardest minds. Yet before he became Athens' greatest teacher, he was something else entirely. He was a warrior. When Athens called, Socrates answered. He could afford his own armor, which meant he fought in the front lines as a hoplite, a heavy infantryman. And here's where the myth of the frail philosopher shatters completely. Socrates was legendary for his physical endurance. He walked barefoot on ice. He went days without food. He stood like an oak tree while others crumbled. At Potidaea in 432 BCE, he saved a life that would shape history. The brilliant young aristocrat Alcibiades fell wounded on the battlefield. As enemies closed in for the kill, Socrates stood over him alone. He fought them off single-handedly, refusing to abandon his companion. The courage he showed that day became the stuff of legend. 2 years later at Delium, Athens faced crushing defeat. Soldiers fled in panic, throwing down their weapons and running for their lives. But not Socrates. Witnesses described his calm, steady gaze as he walked through the chaos. He moved with such confidence, such defiance, that even the pursuing enemy left him alone. They feared what kind of man could be so unafraid. He served again at Amphipolis in 422 BCE, proving once more that philosophy and action were not opposites in his world. They were partners. Socrates was a man of thought and a man of deed. But it was in the Agora, Athens' bustling marketplace, where Socrates fought his most important battles. He had no school, no lecture hall, no fees. He simply walked among the people and started conversations. And these conversations would change the world. Socrates developed a method so powerful, so dangerous, that it would eventually cost him his life. We call it the Socratic method, but the Greeks knew it as the elenchus. It was a tool for mental demolition. He believed people's minds were cluttered with false knowledge, opinions they'd never actually examined. Before truth could enter, the garbage had to go. Here's how it worked. Socrates would approach someone who claimed expertise. A general, a politician, a priest. He'd play the humble student. "You're so wise," he'd say. "Surely you can tell me, what is courage? What is justice? What is virtue?" The expert would give a confident answer. And then Socrates would begin asking questions. Simple questions, logical questions, each one revealing a crack in the definition. Each one exposing a contradiction the expert hadn't noticed. And slowly, inevitably, the entire argument would collapse. The expert would reach aporia, a state of total confusion where they realized they knew nothing at all. "I know nothing except the fact of my ignorance," Socrates would say with a smile. Now imagine you're a powerful politician. You're in the middle of the marketplace, surrounded by your supporters, and this scruffy, barefoot old man makes you look like a complete fool, in public, for free entertainment. The young men of Athens loved it. Students like Plato and Xenophon watched in delight as Socrates tore down the arrogant leaders of their city. They started imitating him, questioning everything, challenging everyone. The old guard called it corrupting the youth. Socrates used what we now call Socratic irony. He'd pretend to be impressed, even awed by someone's wisdom. "Oh, please teach me, for I am but a fool." By the conversation's end, the wise man would be stuttering while Socrates stood there looking innocent. His victims felt mocked, even though he claimed he was just searching for truth. He also spoke of something deeply personal. A daimonion, a divine voice only he could hear. This voice never told him what to do. It only warned him what not to do. It kept him out of politics, kept him from compromising his integrity. It was his moral compass in a city losing its way. But here's the power truth hidden beneath the philosophy. Athens was a democracy. In democracy, whoever speaks best has the most power. By questioning the meaning of words like justice, virtue, and good, Socrates was attacking the foundation of Athenian political power itself. He was showing that the men running the government didn't even understand the words they used. His most famous student was Plato, who would preserve his teachings for eternity. But his most complicated relationship was with Alcibiades, the man whose life he'd saved. Alcibiades was brilliant, handsome, and dangerously ambitious. Socrates was the only person who could make him feel shame. Their bond was a constant struggle between virtue and ambition, wisdom and power. Socrates called his method mutix, midwifery of the mind. Just as his mother helped women give birth, he helped people deliver ideas. He claimed to be empty of wisdom himself. He was just the midwife. And if the idea was stillborn, if it was false or weak, he would kill it so a better one could be conceived. Then came 399 BCE. Socrates was 70 years old. Athens had just lost the devastating Peloponnesian War. The city needed a scapegoat, and they found one. The charges: corrupting the youth and impiety, not believing in the city's gods. But the real reason ran deeper. Many men who had recently overthrown Athenian democracy were Socrates' students, including the tyrant Critias. When democracy returned, they couldn't legally execute these students because of an amnesty law. So they went after the teacher instead. They blamed Socrates' method for creating the monsters who'd tried to destroy their city. At his trial, Socrates could have begged for mercy. He could have played the victim. Instead, he gave a speech so defiant it sealed his fate. He called himself a gadfly, sent by the gods to bite Athens like a lazy horse, keeping it awake and alert. When asked to propose his own punishment, he suggested the city should give him free meals for life as a reward for his service. The jury was not amused. They sentenced him to death. In prison, his friends bribed the guards. They planned his escape. Everything was ready. But Socrates refused to leave. He'd lived under Athens' laws his entire life. To break them now, even unjust ones, would destroy everything he stood for. It would make him a hypocrite. On his final day, he spent hours discussing the immortality of the soul with his friends. When the executioner brought the cup of hemlock poison, Socrates drank it calmly. As the poison worked its way through his body, numbing his legs, his chest, his heart, he remained peaceful. His last words were to his friend Crito. "Crito, we owe a cock to Asclepius. Please, pay the debt and do not forget." Asclepius was the god of healing. Perhaps Socrates meant that death was the final cure for life's sickness, or perhaps he meant something deeper, that truth, finally, had set him free. Socrates never wrote a single word, but his student Plato wrote enough for both of them. Through Plato's dialogues, Socrates' voice echoes across 24 centuries. His method became the foundation of Western philosophy, of scientific inquiry, of critical thinking itself. He taught us that wisdom begins with admitting ignorance, that the unexamined life is not worth living, that truth matters more than comfort, more than safety, more than life itself. Born to a midwife and a stonemason, he didn't care for money or fame. He cared only for truth, and for that truth, he gave everything.